שלום חברים יקרים.
שלום לכולם.
Hello, dear friends.
Hello, everyone.
Very happy to see all those that we can see and those that are joining.
שוב, אם אתם יכולים, תעשו תזכורות בקבוצות לימוד שלכם. כל מי
If you can, send a reminder in your study groups. Anyone who can, please open your cameras. We'll be more than happy to see you.
תוכלו לשאול שאלות אם תרצו.
You can ask questions if you'd like.
גם מאוד מאוד בונים על השאלות שלכם.
And we'll really counter your questions because there is certain material.
אבל הרצונות האמיתיים זה משהו אחר.
If you need to teach some material, then that's the study material. But desires, that's the real thing. And we have this one-time meeting from all over the world that won't repeat itself. So the fact that we influence each other with our questions, with our deficiencies, that's very important.
Today we're in lesson number 8 in our lesson about the fundamentals of the wisdom of Kabbalah. Today in the lesson we'll talk about a fascinating topic, the body and soul and everything between them. We will have many interesting things that we prepare. There'll be many interesting things I assume that you will want to sort out and ask about, and we'll be happy to help you. But before we move into our topic today, as usual, we want to do a short rehearsal of what we learned thus far, so that the puzzle that we're putting together here, bit by bit, we will put every part in its place, and you will get a complete picture of what is the wisdom of Kabbalah. Later on, you'll be able to delve deeper into it your whole life. We embrace everyone and we try to open our hearts to each other. We want to be like one big heart inside of which we will be able to absorb the general force that is operating in the whole of creation, the upper light, which is all love. So in this global embrace that we are now forming between us, we want to sharpen our senses in order to perceive it, absorb it, and make it flow between us.
So we start drawing this picture from the start, that everyone has a point in their heart, where suddenly a person starts to look for something in life that he can't exactly identify. He doesn't know what is that pleasure that he's searching for. And so we touched upon this, upon pleasures. It's something that a person is in pursuit of, and that a person starts to look for something that is beyond this world. That's the beginning of a spiritual path.
In the second meeting, we talked about the scientific definition of the wisdom of Kabbalah, as Bala Sulam, a great teacher, gives us, and he defines the wisdom of Kabbalah as a method for the revelation of the Creator to a person living in this world, a method that we study from meeting to meeting, that we can activate it on ourselves and discover the general force that is operating in the whole of nature, which in Kabbalah is defined as the Creator, force of bestowal and love, to discover Him here and now and be filled by Him.
And then we talked about the three axes, like Owen likes to show. The first state is where the Creator created the desire to receive. The second state is the entire evolution, path of development of man, etc., etc. And the last axis, which is climbing from below up, how we come to it after preparation. And this is the model that we use every time. And every time we put an emphasis on why do we need this model in the start, the cascading, how do we need to develop, and what are we expecting of our ascent.
In the fourth meeting, we talked about a very special place in this model of the three axis, the place that is here, in the beginning of our ascent, on the third axis from below upwards. Here, the point in the heart awakens in a person, and he finds himself inside of the course of the Foundations of the Wisdom of Kabbalah in Bnei Baruch, the International Academy for the Wisdom of Kabbalah, studying authentic Kabbalah as it was passed from teacher to student over thousands of years. And we said that in order to start to grasp the spiritual reality, we need to change, to upgrade our internal operating software, called also our intention. Naturally, it is directed inwards in order to receive, and if we will succeed in changing it and shift it to in order to bestow, we will perceive a higher world, and in this way we will climb through changing and upgrading our intention from us outwardly in bestowal, love, and giving, like the upper force that we want to perceive.
And how do we know this? And what are the tools in order to do this? We have Kabbalistic books written in special language of root and branch, written by people that felt it and wrote it in books. And so we use the books not only in order to get knowledge about how everything's built, but also to draw the light that can change us and advance us quicker.
And we called this force the reforming light. This is what we need to think about. Even now, when our lesson is beginning, we need to be with the intention that we want that this force will bring us back to good, will reform us, that it will build in us an intention of bestowal and love, so that we can start to perceive the entire upper world. In lesson number 6, we got to know the chain of Kabbalists, the great teachers from Abraham onwards up to Baal HaSulam, Rabash and Rav Dr. Michael Lightman, who today are passing on to us, they're serving us this wisdom, ready for usage.
And then last time, on our 7th meeting, we talked about freedom of choice. We asked, does it exist or not? And if it does, then what exactly is it? Hypothetically, what can a person change? And maybe we'll have a short recap of our previous lesson, because it's extremely important. What is the freedom of choice? We said that because man is the desire to receive pleasure, he's like in the squeeze. He's always missing something. And so it's very hard. It's very easy to control him then if he wants something. And so this created being wants something, and this is exactly what leads him. And then a person needs to choose every time more and more stable, more and more comfortable and convenient state. And it's always done in between the desire and the pleasure that meet each other.
We talked about the fact that we are born with elements that we did not choose, inherent elements. Later on, we find ourselves in a family that we did not choose. Father, mother, siblings, we go to a kindergarten or school that usually we did not choose. And in this way, we're shaped by our environment. It gives us certain values and goals and aspirations and worldviews. So inherent elements plus the influence of the environment sit on a basis of our operating system, the substance that we're made of, which is the desire to receive delight and pleasure, maximum pleasure for minimum effort. And as a result of these two inputs plus the operating software, we get a result. We mapped a person and his life, and we saw there's a place where maybe we can cause some change is through the influence of the environment over us. Now, when the point in the heart awakens in me, I can begin to maximize the influence of the spiritual environment over me. And a spiritual environment is made of teachers, the Kabbalists from which we study, emphasizing Baal HaSulam, Rabash, and Rav Dr. Michael Lightman, the friends with which I study, and you mostly meet them in the additional meetings, which are according to language in smaller work groups. The common denominator that I and my friend in the study group have is that we have a point in the heart. It's a treasure, it's a spiritual possession, it's our diamond that glows, and if we connect it with other diamonds, it shines infinitely more. The books we study from, the teachers, the books, the friends, and the books, the correct books, all of these together build for me a spiritual environment. The more I intensify their influence, I amplify their influence over me, then I can flourish spiritually and grow optimally.
And so we came to our topic today. Same picture, we only add another and another part to it, another important part of the puzzle, and the question that everyone asks themselves, very intriguing and unclear. We are composed of what? We have some inner part. It's called the soul. Does this thing exist or not? So there are plenty and plenty of different aspects to this thing that we call the soul. And if you open your camera, you can raise your hand and answer the question of, do you think we have a soul? Do we have a soul? Is there such a thing as a soul? One hand. 2 hands, not many hands. Is there such a thing as a soul? And maybe someone thinks that we don't have a soul. Maybe someone thinks that there is no such thing as a soul. I think that all the hands that are up now, it's from the first time that I asked, because usually no one says that. We think that we have no soul. It's hard to define what is the soul, what is it exactly, but that it doesn't exist at all, it's very hard for a person to say, because it's a very important inner part, so it seems to us. And this is what we'd like to talk about today.
Before we start with that, I wanted to relate to any questions from last week, if you have any. First of all, we had homework. We asked you to try to observe yourself and write down situations, states in which you recognized how the environment in which you exist influences you, and especially how, for example, reading the books of Kabbalah influences you, or watching Kabbalah lessons, or a meeting of the additional Kabbalah lesson that each one of you has in their own language. We wanted you to check it. When you expose yourself to such contents, how does it influence you? So I hope that you tried to check that. Please keep trying it from here on. And if you have any questions quickly before we enter to the topic that we started already about last week, we will be happy to answer them now. You can put up your hand and ask. I remember that at the end of the previous meeting, there were 2 or 3 friends, men or women, who did not have the chance to ask. Time ran over, and we said next week we'll try to give you time. So today I'm inviting you to ask early. You don't have to wait for the very last moment of the lesson, because maybe you'll run out of time. So if anybody wants to put up your hand, you're welcome to do it. Received one question that was asked, that was sent us before the lesson, maybe we can answer. Rosa from Spain is asking the following. Possible to develop the point in the heart without acquiring any knowledge in Kabbalah? Is it possible to develop the point in the heart without acquiring any knowledge in Kabbalah? Boris, do you want to answer that?
I can try. I'll start. You finish. So the world, it works by certain rules. Whether a person develops together with everyone, with all of evolution. Many people don't know, and even today, don't know many things. Some barely know how to read and write. So, does a person develop consciously, or does he develop does he develop naturally? That simply nature develops all of its parts and him as well. Or does he develop consciously as a human being? So this is exactly where we say that the wisdom of Kabbalah is something that can accelerate a person's development. For a person to be able to advance a bit more quickly, than without the wisdom of Kabbalah.
And besides accelerating it, again, in order to give a good answer, we'll go back to the model of the 3 axes. When a point in the heart awakens in a person, he's here on that seam line between the second axis of development in this world and the possibilities to start ascending and discovering the upper world. What is the wisdom of Kabbalah? It is the science that researches how do we climb up here on the 3rd axis. I do not know, and Kabbalists do not know of any other science that explains how to climb up on the 3rd axis. So the moment that the point in the heart awakens in a person, here, and he wants to open it up and develop it and perceive, absorb the upper world and discover it, like a researcher, not in a way which is emotional, incidental, passing, but in a methodical, scientific way, when he keeps on developing and he discovers and he grows through all 112 degrees, the spiritual degrees, he climbs up through the 5 upper worlds up to the world of Ein Sof, infinity. Scientists, Kabbalists do not write that there are other methods for this ascent. But Rosa, you have to check this by yourself. What is the method? First of all, to scrutinize it, to get to know it, to operate it on yourself, and then you will know how do you develop through an active study of Kabbalah and where life takes you if you don't engage in this wisdom. Okay, there's another question. We'll leave it. I want to say to Rolly from San Francisco that your question of what is the difference between neshama and ruach, soul and spirit, we'll get to it later today. Another question by Rosa from Spain, we'll get to that also later on. So thank you.
So again, there are plenty of things about the soul and many things from the wisdom of Kabbalah that became part of our culture, and also what we feel personally without reading. And, it's very interweaved with mysticism and whatnot. Now, Baal Sulam, in one of his articles, Body and Soul, he examines the entire concept like a scientist. He, first of all, says what people think, the way he inquired upon it, and then he gives several approaches to it, and then he gives the approach of the wisdom of Kabbalah to it. So, at first, he gathered this picture with the three general trends that he has identified about how do people usually grasp it, and it's not wisdom of Kabbalah yet. So the first theory is that there is a soul. The soul is the main thing. The body, if it exists, it can't exist without the soul. The soul is eternal. The soul is the true essence, and this is what many of us feel. And if we can have a short... whoever thinks that this is the truth, the right answer, please raise your hand, that there is something eternal called the soul, and that the body is very marginal, that without the soul, matter is a dead thing. So there are 1, 2, 3, and more and more. We'll play this kind of game between a rhetoric question and your response. An opposite theory that says that there is no soul. Our body is perfect. Everything about us is like a biorobot. Some of it conscious, some of it unconscious, some of it that we know about, some of it we don't. From recent research, we learn a lot about our body. There's brain research that is now starting to understand many processes that we didn't know about before, many of them, and prove that there's no need for anything else. Information goes into us, corrects us, then there are biochemical processes, the body responds, and there's no need for anything in addition. If the body lives, it lives. If it dies, it dies. That's it. That's all there is to it. Nothing more. And all the different mystical experiments are worthless. That you put a person on the scale and you weigh him, and then you weigh him when he dies. Does he weigh less? Does he lose weight because the soul as if left him? The second approach is that a person's perfect. Please raise your hands that there's no soul, that a person needs nothing in addition to what it already has. Here they're a bit less, but it's a very healthy approach. If it's science, then tell me, please, what frequency does it have? What is it exactly? I, as a scientist, want to know what it is. Don't give me something vague. That's the second approach. And the third approach is something in between, that it is a kind of approach that tries to tie the two things together. There's the gist of us, which is the soul, that dresses in the body. That's also perfect. The body doesn't need anything in addition. It's really a perfect being of nature as is, but the essence of man is a soul that comes in addition. So there are people that have a soul, people that don't have a soul. They try to divide it into different types of souls. There's a kind of approach to try to get the best out of both. That on the one hand, there's no need the body doesn't need a soul. On the other hand, that Baal HaSulam also writes that a person dislikes the idea that there's nothing more than your corporeal death, that there has to be something in addition to that, something eternal, that something must happen after that. And so they search, because without that, you have no energy. So these are the three theories.
Now, when you were talking, do you know what I remembered? First of all, I think we should speak more slowly for the translators. But what did I remember? When I was a child, about 9 years old, my mother got sick with cancer. During 9 years, she was sick and got better, and again they discovered cancer elsewhere, and again she got better, and treatments and chemotherapy and radiations and mastectomy and all kinds of things. My whole child went under this shadow that my mother was sick with cancer. She passed away when I was about 18. This awakened in me many questions about life, about death, about where is my mother right now? Can I be connected with her? In general, what happens to a person after he died? There was a living person, suddenly it stopped. Where? Many great questions. And these questions ultimately brought me to the wisdom of Kabbalah that put order into my heart and mind. I remember that when you were talking now. So what does Kabbalah say? What is the approach of Kabbalah to this whole thing?
And then in the same article, Baal HaSulam, he approaches what the wisdom of Kabbalah says, and because it's a wisdom, there's no unequivocal question that you can put as the fourth theory, and that's it. He develops the answer. And today we will try and develop the answer too. First of all, he says that we approach nature as nature. We research nature. There's part of it that's revealed to us, part of it that's concealed from us, and the entire world works on passing the concealed into the revealed. We discover new laws, we acquire experience. And so it's a very healthy approach if we base ourselves first on what we have. So what we know, that's true. Now we can guess what's hidden. Could be that some things are unraveled and will never be revealed. But this approach of that there is the revealed and concealed, it's a healthy approach, and this is what we start with. So what does a person have? What he has? I feel myself, I see you, I see Owen, I see you on Zoom, I feel the world as I feel through my five senses, and maybe something that's not exactly defined, but this is what I feel, and this is the starting point. Now, a person comes and develops, and new things come. Like we already said about the three axes, we want to acquire something in addition, and the person always aspires for balance. He always aspires to reach a state where he feels good, where he wishes to complete some kind of deficiency that he has in his desires. So maybe we can move to what Kabbalists say about it. Where's the next stage that Baal HaSulam talks about? We have a slide.
Yes, we will start. Well, in our lesson today, we're going to bring you excerpts from the authentic Kabbalistic sources that speak about these topics of body and soul, life, death, incarnations. We will try together to put together another piece and another piece and another piece and compose a complete picture. So the first excerpt we brought you is by Baal HaSulam, Rav Yehuda Ashlag, and it says the following. Slide 5. Initially, only one soul was created, the soul of Adam Harishon. Again, initially, only one soul was created, the soul of Adam Harishon.
אז מילת נשמה שאנחנו נפגשים כאן,
So
זה אותה נשמה שאנחנו
the word soul that we meet here, it is the soul that we think about or some other soul, but at least we meet the concept, we meet here a concept that it is creation. And he calls the created being a soul that consists of such and such parts. And that's the beginning.
Now we want to use the model of the three axes, and today we will focus on this process that initially only one soul was created, the soul of Adam Harishon. We're going to place it in our model and we will start to develop it. Can we see the presentation, please? Okay. So the soul of, this is slide 2. The soul of Adam Harishon is this ellipse we drew in the middle of this model of the three axes. It's one general soul. In a minute we're going to put it in order where exactly it is, why, what. But in the beginning, this is what was created. Today, in the lesson, because we are already in lesson number 8, we will use all the things that you know already from previous lessons. So, what is it that you know? You know that Kabbalists, there were people like me and you that lived the point in the heart awakening and big questions about life. They started to research nature with the help of the Kabbalists, of the teachers who were before them. They discovered the system of the upper worlds, and at the top of the revelation, they discover the uppermost thing called the thought of creation, the uppermost thought from which everything starts to form. And then they start telling us from the side of the system of creation, how everything develops. So you know already that the Creator is defined by Kabbalists as a force of good bestowal, a force of love, of giving. You can also define Him as a desire to bestow. The will to bestow creates a will to receive, that he will be able to fill with all the good that he wants to give. The desire to bestow creates a desire to receive. You've heard that already a few times during our course so far, right? Please, thumbs up. Anyone who heard that already in the course, you heard it? Thumbs up. The Creator is the desire to bestow. He creates the created being as a desire to receive. You see, here is the cup. We learned about this cup. My cup is like the desire to receive delight and pleasure. The Creator creates it in order to fill it up with all the good. The Creator, the will to bestow, creates a will to receive. So far, we learned that. Where is that in our sketch? Let's go back to the presentation. The desire to receive delight and pleasure is also called, in certain processes that we skipped over, the soul of Adam Harishon. This is the ellipse we see there. What is it made of? Of the desire to receive delight and pleasure, that the Creator fills it with all the good that He wants to give. This soul has inside of it many components, like these dots. We see that this junction. And between all of them, there is a flow of the force of life, the good force, the force of bestowal. All of these elements that are connected between them in bestowal and love, this is why the upper force fills them and flows between them. And then this state, this perfect state, is smashed, shattered. This process is also called the sin of the tree of knowledge in the Torah. What happens in the shattering? Boris will explain that to us.
The process is that this soul goes through. The soul is made up of many, many parts. Now, it goes through a process of discovering who has created it, how to reach a coherence of form with them, and one of the process of shattering is one of those processes of acquiring the awareness of who am I, what am I, and enables each part to do its work in the correction of the general soul, bigger soul. And right now we see that. Here we can see that this soul that consists of different parts goes through different souls. You remember the three axes. There's the expansion of the worlds, and it reaches this world. It's like a baby that once it's born in a world that something exists around it already. So the 4 worlds that we see here, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, are like 3 filters. This is the environment into which the soul's born. It's a desire of a different type. Also the word world. Remember we said olam, world, comes from the word in Hebrew, comes from the word halem, concealment, that it's a filter that diminishes all the time the pleasure that comes from the Creator, that makes it smaller and smaller and smaller until it reaches this world. And in this world there are points in the heart that want the light in its perfect and pure form. And besides the points in the heart, there are also other desires that don't directly want the Creator, but simply want to enjoy. But right now, we're talking about the soul, about the desire to directly enjoy the Creator that passes through all the systems, all the worlds, reaching this world.
Even before they reach down to this world, in the process of the shattering, we see in the sketch, if we can see the sketch again. Sorry, microphone was off. Even before these points reach down to our world, which is the bottom of this picture, I want to elaborate on the intermediate process and open it up a little bit more. So we have the general soul, the soul of Adam Rishon. This is the uppermost ellipse. Then it is shattered. It's broken, it smashes, and it becomes split into 600,000 individual souls. One soul is broken, smashed into 600,000 individual souls. The 600,000 individual souls go through more and more subdivisions until eventually they come down to such a level that is called this world. This means that one soul was shattered. The first division is into 600,000 individual souls, and they also subdivide into sparks of the soul, as it is called in Kabbalah. And such a spark of a soul goes down all to the way to the lowest level in reality, called this world. This was the descent, the decline, quickly skipping over many sub-processes, but all the descent from above downwards. So up above I have one soul, the soul of Adam HaRishon. It is broken, divided into 600,000 individual souls. They keep dividing into more and more additional divisions. In the end, in this world, we have these dots, these points in the heart that you see. Now we start to develop on this second axis. On the second axis, we also said in previous lessons that, like Boris said, here all kinds of desires that develop in a person. Not only the person develops here, but the whole of creation, the entire evolution develops here. At the head of the second axis, we can say that the Big Bang occurred, and the still starts to form, and then the vegetative, animate, and people. I'm a little bit confused with the direction of the cameras. Forgive me for that. So what is this internal, inner substance that develops? The desire to receive delight and pleasure. When it reaches a degree where it produces human beings, then people develop. What develops? Their desires, existential desires like food, sex, shelter, family, human desires, money, honor, control, knowledge. And at the end of this development, the point in the heart awakens. How long does this second axis of development take? Many, many years. Many generations, thousands of generations, millions of years. The universe exists for 14 billion years, pretty much. The substance that pushes this entire process forward are these small sparks that fell down all the way to this world, and they push the whole of creation forward. To where do they push it, Boris?
Pushes it toward the point where eventually all the sparks are part of the same body, one body. They need to come to understand the purpose of creation, come together, understand that each has their own rule in the body, and then as a complete body to become like the Creator. And there are plenty of examples. It's like the human body that consists of many, many cells, and we have plenty of systems and organs, and each and every cell is like an entity in and of itself, but its general purpose is that it supports the rest of the body, and then you have a person that has desires, he's alive, he's living his life, and he doesn't exactly feel one organ or another, what does it do, but that person, all of it together is man. And the same with us, each of us has a spark, or is a spark that has a certain purpose, in the purpose of creation. And then what it develops into is that we start understanding the part of each of us in the integral system. Comes to mind the parable by Bala Sulam that what was their need for shattering for altogether? He compares it to a king who had a treasure that he needed to move to a distant country and that he can't trust anyone. He felt that all those around him might steal it. And it's an insinuation to the will to receive that you can't trust. So what did he do? He broke it up into little bits, pieces, pennies. He gave each of the countrymen 1 penny, golden penny, to pass it on to another country. And for 1 penny, no one would like to, get in a fight with a king for 1 penny. And so that's the same with the spark. If a person receives a spark of light, he won't be able to stop himself. So he won't be able to meet the conditions that are required in order to receive the pleasure from the Creator. He won't be able to hold himself back. And
לא להכניס עכשיו טרמינולוגיה שלא למדנו על מנת להשפיע ולבנות.
I'll try not to use words like in order to bestow and build screens, etc., but there are certain conditions for the reception of the light, and for that you need sparks. We're talking about 600, and so they divided. Today we see that there are many more than 600,000 people. And so obviously it comes, it divides, and more and more and more. But eventually, why was there need for it all together? Because now each of these sparks has a tiny, tiny mission, tiny, tiny tasks. And it's enough for me to do my part. I'm already doing a part of something big. And if we all do it together, we'll get there.
We can move on to the next sketch, if we can show, slide number 4. In the next sketch, we can see already how we climb from our world back up to that one soul that was created, the soul of Adam Arishon. So we exist down below in this world, and we start to climb. First of all, we meet a barrier that separates between our world and the upper worlds, the spiritual worlds. How do we pass through this barrier? Not something that exists somewhere above the Everest, so if I'll climb high enough, I'll reach it. It doesn't exist in the depths of the sea, it doesn't exist in space. It doesn't exist anywhere. It exists inside my heart and my mind, inside my perception of reality. I'm reminding you the lesson about the perception of reality. We talk about the intention in order to receive that operates us naturally, and upgrading it that depends on us shifting to the intention in order to bestow. The force that upgrades us exists in the books of Kabbalah. There is reforming light in them that gives us or shifts our internal operating software, our program from in order to receive to in order to bestow. When this happens, we cross the barrier that separates from this world from the upper worlds. The moment that we acquire the intention to bestow, this, in Kabbalistic definitions, is considered that we have acquired to ourselves a soul, neshama. Until then, what do we have? A potential point called a point in the heart. We defined it in previous lessons as a seed of the soul. To truly develop it means to break through the barrier that separates between this world and the upper worlds. During this During this climb, we enter the first spiritual degree called the world of Asiya. Now we have to keep developing our intention to bestow more and more. This is how we climb up through the worlds of Yetzirah, Briah, and Atzilut. In the world of Atzilut, we meet this single structure, the soul of Adam Harishon. We connect ourselves to this structure, and by that we feel all of the upper light that the Creator filled this soul with before it was shattered. But because we did this entire climb by ourselves through development on our side, it is 620 times more. This is how it is defined. In a minute we'll understand what this number means, than how this state was to begin with, when it's one soul filled with light. It's actually infinitely more. And I, Oren, and you, each and every one of you, are invited to do it right now. We lived in this world generation after generation. We developed, we accumulated discernments, we accumulated impressions, mostly of the suffering of existence, chasing all kinds of things, desires that awakened in us, efforts that we invested in order to fill our vessel with a good feeling, with delight and pleasure. And in the end, when the point in the heart awakened and brought us to the wisdom of Kabbalah, we are invited to climb, to build for ourselves a soul, neshama, an intention to bestow that will be able to be filled with the upper light until I and you, each and every one of you, becomes the soul of Adam Harishon, the general soul that is filled with light.
Let's see what our teacher says about the upper light, the soul, and how it develops.
So clip number 1 by Dr. Michael Eichmann. The upper force is called good and doing good. And it is a force of bestowal and love, giving and love. A part of it, of this great general force, this infinite force really, of love and bestowal, part of it is called a soul, neshama.
When you say upper force, you mean God?
I don't know what God means. If you'll explain to me what God means, I can tell you what I have in mind. Is it correct or not? Are we using the same terms?
If we use the same terminology.
Terminology is not enough. The meaning of it.
Okay. I'll ask this way. I understand that there's an upper force.
No, it's not like that. But let's say it's like that. Well, infinite. Infinite dimension, not from our world, but in other dimensions that we do not perceive. We don't perceive these dimensions. This is why He's not revealed. And it is a force. He's a force of bestowal and love. And if we're talking about the soul, then a part of him, and the question is, what does it mean, a part? That is called a soul. So, in the introduction to the book of Zohar, the author, Rav Yehuda Ashlag Baal HaSulam, asks, what does it mean, a part? By what suddenly from the Creator, God, it doesn't matter how you want to call him, a part is simply cut. What is it cut by? And where does it go? How is it separated? Is there something outside of God? And it exists as a separate from Him? It has to be separate, meaning the opposite of Him to, in a certain way, separated from Him. So that's where we study about it.
So if I understand correctly, there's a connection between the soul and the Creator. That's a part of Him.
The soul is a part and He is everything.
Let's move to questions.
Yes, friends, you sent us questions, and that's wonderful. You can send us more questions, but you can also put up your hand and ask right now, live. We'll be happy to see you and hear you and translate you in every language you can ask. And we want to see, we were told that the students in this study group, they are truly beautiful, all the men and women, so we'll be happy to feel your inner beauty and see your cameras and hear your voices. I'm reminding you, last week you remembered to ask at the very last moment and there was not enough time, so wake up. You were invited to put up your hand and ask. Shall we start with the questions we had already before?
Question from China. What's the difference between soul and spirit? I put it this way. Like we said, that a man is a collection of desires. There are desires that are basic. Sometimes we draw it as a pyramid, desires for protection, development, family, etc., etc. Social desires, the desire for money, honor, knowledge. And at the very top, there is a point in the heart, a desire for something higher, for understanding who or what the Creator is, many desires in short. And it said that there are 5 different types of desires, and opposite them, 5 fulfillments, 5 different types of fulfillment. And it's exactly like with our 5 senses. So in that I see, I can identify a certain I can perceive a certain wave, electromagnetic wave. If it's hearing, the sense of hearing, so I hear an acoustic wave, and then I can hear. So there are 5 different types of desires. There's nefesh, ruach, chaya, neshama, and yechida. There are 5 pleasures that suit the 5 different kinds of desires, one versus the other. In Russian, it's 2, by the way. It's the same way. There's only. They're all in all 5 different types, and it doesn't really matter what is their name, but what's important is to understand that each desire has its fulfillment, its light. So what's the difference? The difference is the quality. It's of a different quality. It's like sometimes there's a difference between an acoustic wave and an electromagnetic wave. The one I can see, the other one I can hear. So in us too, there are different desires that can enjoy one or another type of light or a preparation for it, and a part of our body that can enjoy a different light. Therefore, we talk about the 5 different types of lights versus 5 different types of desires in a person.
Can we see again the diagram with the upper world? Upper worlds. These 5 kinds. Let's see here. What do we see in this sketch? We see that we are down in this world, and we said that we have to start to climb, to develop spiritually. What does that mean to develop spiritually? You know that already. To acquire an intention in order to bestow. The moment that we acquire an intention to bestow, in general, it's considered that we are building for ourselves our soul, and it starts to be filled with light. But the building of the soul, in general, is divided into 5 stages. This is why we also have 5 worlds. The world of Asiya, Yetzirah, Bri'ah, Atzilut, and the world of Adam Kadmon. And on any such level of development, spiritual development, my intention of in order to bestow grows quantitatively and qualitatively, and therefore I can perceive within me greater light, qualitatively and qualitatively. The names of these lights, these are the 5 names that Boris said before. Nefesh in the world of Asiya, Ruach in the world of Yetzirah, Neshama in the world of Bri'ah, Chaya in the world of Atzilut, and Yechida in the world of Adam Kadmon. So 5 fillings corresponding to the 5 internal vessels that we develop inside of a single process of an intention in order to bestow. from me outwardly. Why? Why does this intention allow me to be filled with lights that now I don't feel and discover words that now I can't sense? Because the intention, in order to bestow, places me in equivalence of form with the general force, which is entirely bestowal and love. It's the law of equivalence of form. It determines where I am in this map. Next question? Oh, but we have live questions. We'll continue. Let's start now. Maybe you can give the right of speech.
Anne Louis, בבקשה.
Anna Louis, please.
欧仁老师还有 Boris 老师好。然后我的问题是
שלום לכם המורים. השאלה שלי היא
天道和天命都是一样的吗？
לא. כל הנשמות
欧仁老师，你有听到吗？
יורדות עד לעולם הזה? לכל הנשמות יש את אותה המשימה גם לחזור חזרה למקור שלהן. לכל הנשמות. בתוך הגוף האנושי, לכולם יש את אותה המשימה בעצם?
אני אתחיל ותמשיך. יש
I'll start. So it could function, could be a different purpose, because in our body we have different souls, we have different cells, brain cells, lung cells, these cells, those cells. Each of them has a different task. There are softer, harder cells, etc., those that change more quickly, less quickly, but they all have the same goal of reviving the body. So it's the same here, and there are no redundant cells. The purpose of the cell is for the body to exist and develop. So we all have the same task. We all need to come to equivalence of form with Creator to change our intention into in order to bestow. But the way they function is different.
Another way to look at it is in the general soul that was created, the soul of Adam Harishon. What is its substance? Not physical substance, but its essence. What is it made of? It's made of a desire to receive delight and pleasure. One, a general one. What does it include? The structure, the soul of Adam Harishon. It includes all of the desires to receive delight and pleasure that will ever be revealed in creation. They all exist inside this structure. The light created this desire, and when this desire was shattered, you can relate to the desire to receive delight and pleasure also as ego. In our world, it is manifested in people's lives, mostly in the form of an ego. I want this and that and this and that. This ego, when it was shattered, this general ego, when it was shattered, every particle, let's say these are two fragments, what separates between them is the kind of desire. If they were exactly the same thing, that there would be one. The spiritual law talks about equivalence of form and change of form. When things are similar, they get closer. If they're the same, they are one. If the more different they are, they move apart. So this general ego that was broken, when it was broken, it becomes divided into different kinds, different shades, different desires. Each one, in the end, when we reach the level of our world, inside anything that exists, there is a unique desire. It's like only his. There's none other like that. If there was another one like that in creation, there would be one. The difference between the different desires is what distinguishes between different created beings, between different people also. The correction starts on the level of human beings, of people. The still vegetative and animate, there's nothing in them that needs to be corrected, because on them there is no egoistic intention of in order to receive while taking advantage of others. In us, in human beings, it certainly exists. We have to discover that this is how we are operated from within. But when we discover it, we'll realize that this is what we have to correct. I already discovered the intention to receive that manages me. Boris will discover the intention to receive that manages him. The correction that Oren and Boris have to do is the same correction. To change the intention from in order to receive to in order to bestow. But because in Boris, the substance that he's made of, his desire, is unique to him, and in Oren it's a desire that is unique to him. We're two different particles in the general soul. The correction is the same. It brings us back to the general structure. Then Boris completes his part, Oren completes his part, and you complete your part.
And from here, we can understand that each person needs to make his own specific personal relative correction. If Owen does his 100% and I do my 100%, which could be completely two different things, but we all do the same relatively. There are people that are more talented, less talented, it doesn't matter. If each of us does the best that he can in order to realize his potential, no one to envy, no one to be bummed out about, simply each of us needs to do his 100% to realize his potential. And then all of us together will complete the task that was given to the entire creation.
Tanhan, בבקשה, תשאלי.
Tanhan, please.
鲍里老师好 OK 我们的问题是等一下有点卡 OK 灵魂
אברהם אומר שיש בעיה בצלילה, אורן. השאלה שלי היא, הנשמה היא אין סופית. האם זו הצורה שזה מוגדר, או... האם היא נוצרה מתופעה טבעית, ולכן הנשמה היא אין סופית, אלא שיש פשוט צורות שונות, היא באה לידי ביטוי, או מוגדרת בצורות שונות. אני מקווה שתרגמתי נכון.
המושג אין סוף בקבלה מוגדר בצורה מאוד מאוד
פשוטה. The term אין סוף, infinite, unlimited, is defined in Kabbalah in a very simple way. We said that there is the creator, he's the force of bestowal, he's unlimited. Force of bestowal, love, and giving. In order for him to give someone to give all this goodness for, he created the desire to receive delight and pleasure, which is perfectly suited for what he wants to give him. These two forces are called the creator and the created being, the giving force and the receiving force. If the receiving force, the desire to receive, wants something and it is filled in an unlimited way, it is considered that it is filled without an end. Ein Sof, no end or unlimited, is a state when the entire desire is filled. If it has limitations on the way to filling up itself, it's no longer Ein Sof, it's not unlimited. We were created in an initial state called Ein Sof, infinity or unlimited. Let's say this general soul, if you go back to the sketch, let's say this general soul, great. The soul of Adam Rishon is filled with light without any limit. Its state, let's call it, is the world of Ein Sof. But then it was shattered. When we exist in our world, I have inside of me a seed of the soul, the point in the heart, a point of potential. If I develop it with the study of Kabbalah, I go back, I return to the same structure. This is considered that I reach the world of Ein Sof. Beyond the 5 worlds you see in the sketch, Asiya, Yetzirah, Bria, Yetzirut, Atzilut, and Adam Kadmon, there is another world which is the root of everything. It is called the world of Ein Sof, the infinite, unlimited state. When I, like Boris said before, complete everything that I need to correct over my entire will to receive, I have to discover the entire desire to receive this delight and pleasure, which is mine, cover all of it with an intention in order to bestow. It is what enables the light to fill all of me without any limit. This is considered that I reached the world of Ein Sof. No end, unlimited. When I did that, I completed my correction and I'm in the world of Ein Sof. This is considered the end, the individual end of my correction. When all the created beings complete this correction, it's called the general end of correction. And then we all exist in the world of Ein Sof. This is the complete realization of the thought of creation, and then the good life begins. We and the Creator start to be partners. We start to play with each other. Soon we will have that.
Yeah, 2 more questions.
מצטער אם אמרתי נכון או לא. בבקשה, רואים אותך.
Sorry if I didn't pronounce it correctly.
I would like to ask,
כן, הייתי רוצה לשאול, למה זה בעצם הייתה השבירה המקורית של הכלי המקורי, בשביל שנוכל להגיע לזה בעצמנו?
כן, כן, בדיוק.
Exactly, yes.
משל, כמו שבעל הסולם מביא.
Also, like Baal Salam's parable goes, that if you divide a large or a difficult or big work into smaller pieces, it's easier to carry it out. So this entire world, it's divided among us all in order to carry out this bigger task. This was the purpose. When we'll later talk about development in general, we'll see that each time in creation there's the search for some additional solution as to how can the light enter the kli. And the light can enter only under the condition of in order to bestow. Then there's another condition that it's impossible to receive altogether, but it can only be in complete bestowal. And so every time the previous method reaches its end, exhausts itself, then the light searches for another way, another breakthrough, breakout, and there was a need to reach the shattering, to divide, and build this mechanism so that in each desire to receive there will be a spark and a development mechanism in order to develop in this direction. And the rest of the desires that don't, well, this is part of the answer.
Next question. We have another question from China.
Hong Sang, בבקשה.
יש.
כן, רגע. Hong Sang.
כן.
איפה נשמה? כי אחרי שאדם עוזב את העולם. יכולים לבקש מהקרובים שלנו שיברכו אותנו אולי. אז איפה תהיה הנשמה אחרי שהאדם עוזב את העולם הזה? והאם נוכל אולי לפגוש את הקרובים שלנו שכבר נפטרו ולבקש שיפגשו אותנו?
אורן עכשיו רוצה שתתחיל לענות, אבל אני לפני זה רוצה להביא התפעלות.
Owen will answer in a moment. I just want to share my impression that we're from all over the world here, talking different languages. And so until we have AI that can interpret us instead of ourselves, we have interpreters. Sometimes it's through second-hand interpreters that from one language to another, in order for all of us to be able to understand each other. So it can take some time. And also, Hebrew isn't my mother tongue, Russian is, but eventually I see that despite all the languages and diversion, we have a complete understanding of each other, so that's great.
In order to answer the question, where will the soul be after a person leaves this world? Let's go back to our sketch once again in the presentation. Great, we exist in this world, right? Let's go to the previous one with the point in the heart. Okay, great. Now let's look at this sketch. What do we have on the bottom in this sketch? We have the points in the heart. We said that a point in the heart can awaken in a person. Now, I want to look for different statuses. We have a process here of how we're supposed to climb, but until we get to the beginning of the climbing, of the ascent, and in the ascent itself, there are different statuses there. Let's say that I lived in this world, and I didn't feel inside any awakening of the point in the heart that awakened within me big questions about my existence. What does it mean that I don't have a point in the heart? Answer: No, in every person there is a point in the heart. However, in me, it still has not awakened. Does it develop or does it not develop as a result of me living in this world? I live, I'm born, I suffer, I do things, I enjoy. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, I'm done. The point in the heart did not awaken in me. Everything that I went through in my existence is accumulated in some database. It's kept in some sort of internal system. My force of life ends. And just like a cat, let's say, dies one day because its vital force, in Kabbalah, we call it the beastly soul, or the beastly nefesh, stops functioning. The cat dies. The vital force within me, the human, the person, stops functioning. My body dies. Now, the point in the heart did not yet awaken in me. So everything I went through that was accumulated in this database and continues on to the next incarnation, next life. This point in the heart that was inside of me was moved me from within, but it hasn't yet reached a certain level of inner maturity where it reaches my awareness with questions about the meaning of life and the desire to develop on the third axis to the revelation of the spiritual world. It hasn't yet reached such a level of development. The next generation comes, the next incarnation. Once again, this point clothes in a body of someone. It develops him. Let's say now in that person, questions did awaken about the meaning of life. This is considered that the point in the heart moved from a state which is more passive to a state which is more active. As a result of that, the person doesn't choose that. It is according to the order of the correction of the general soul. There is one system, and the broken pieces within it are corrected from light to heavy. When my turn in the system comes, the point becomes more active. Suddenly it drives me crazy, doesn't let me sleep at night. It tells me, Oren, what about you? What about your life? So you made a lot of money, and you have a great profession, a great career, everything is fine. You checked all the milestones of success. But is that it? Is this enough for you? Is this how you see yourself up to 70 years, 8 years, and then you're gone? Maybe there's more. This more opens up to you from within. It brings you to the wisdom of Kabbalah, the wisdom of how to receive. To receive what? Your soul. You learn how to develop an intention in order to bestow, and you break through from this world. You turn the seed of your soul, your potential point, to a soul, to a receptacle that, let's say, enters the world of Asiya, degree number 1. Already, you're filled with the light of the Creator, spiritual light, suitable for degree number 1. This is eternal. So, in this world, I have two kinds of statuses. There is a person in whom the point in the heart awakened, and he developed it. He built for himself a soul, a spiritual soul, an intention to bestow that is already filled with the upper light on a certain level. And from there, he has to continue developing until he returns to the world of Atzilut, to the general soul. And there is a person, me, for example, in my previous life, in which the point in the heart did not yet awaken in me. If the point in the heart did not yet awaken in me, there is no object that we will talk about. What happens to it after it dies? What happens to a cat after it dies? Nothing happens. What happens to a person in which the point in the heart did not yet awaken? After he dies, nothing happens. That spark that existed in him, because the spark exists in each and every person, but in a dormant state, it comes to another body in a next incarnation. Maybe it will ignite him to spiritual development. This is what happens after a person leaves this world. There was another part in this question. We will be able to speak to the spirits or souls of relatives who passed away and communicate with them. You want to explain that?
Yeah, to continue from where you stopped. If we look at it as a system, then on the first acts where the soul was created and it divided, each part has all of its future desires. Sometimes we call it DNA, we compare it to a DNA. In spirituality, it's called Reshimot, records, which is the entire collection of souls, of desires that already exist and gradually become revealed, just like DNA. When two types of cells from mom and dad meet and create something completely unique that goes and develops, becomes a fetus, is born. Some desires are realized, some aren't, but everything that happens to a person exists in that DNA. So each of us has sparks, this DNA, and they only come and become revealed when following the other, and some do become revealed, some don't. And another point is that we have desires that we've already identified and that we want, and some we don't. I can want something and not want something in this world. Suppose politics doesn't interest me. For example, I don't want to acquire something not interesting to me. So we can say that I don't have a desire for it. I don't want this or that thing in this world. I don't want that kind of fulfillment. And then, in our Kabbalistic terminology, if I don't want something, then I don't have it. And here, there's something very interesting and strange. Sometimes Dr. Lakeman, in his videos, he enters straight out and says that a person has no soul. A person born in this world has no soul, meaning what? That he doesn't have that desire. He doesn't have that certain desire to reach the Creator. He has plenty of other desires, but not that one. And until he does, and I'm not talking about whether it's fulfilled or not, did he get pleasure for this desire or not. If this desire doesn't exist, there is no soul. When he suddenly starts wanting it and goes through the entire process of understands the process of how to receive a pleasure for this desire, he enters into something else, and then he already has a soul. But until then, this is a person living in this world, as someone said, that has some kind of vital existence that sustains him, but he doesn't have the desire or the light yet, or anything else that can be considered a soul. And then, and this relates to the question already, refers to it. Can he be in touch with other souls? Now, this is something that's very dependent on how you define it. So if he doesn't have a soul, what's that about? Going back to the theories by Bala Sulam that there are those that believe that there is a soul, those that don't, those that are somewhere in between, in the middle. But if you ask those people to think that there is a soul, you ask them what that is, they say maybe it's some kind of energy that enters and exits a person, that sits somewhere in the clouds, or who knows where. And then in the same way, you can talk about what do you get when... No, we don't talk that way. Either there is or there isn't a desire. We don't know what goes on with those desires that did not yet become revealed. The existent potential. So the healthy approach is that if there's no desire, there's nothing to talk about.
I want to add, let's say that a point in heart awakens in a person and he reaches the study of Kabbalah and he develops himself and he reaches degree number 7. In the upper world, divided into 5 upper worlds, each world is divided internally into 5 additional spiritual vessels that are further divided into 5 sephirot. Altogether, we have 125 degrees on the spiritual ladder of development. The moment a person enters the first spiritual degree, or the second, third, he climbs upwards, he already has the intention in order to bestow. He already has this spiritual vision. He can see other souls that have made the same correction like himself. That's one. Second, this means that if these people are no longer living in our world, let's say Rav Lightman's teacher passed in 1991, Bala Sulam passed in 1950, passed away in 1954, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the 2nd century AD, he wrote the book of Zohar, Abraham. 3,800 years ago, those souls exist for eternity inside the general system of the soul of Adam Harishon. If I build for myself a soul, I enter the same playing yard of the big ones, the great ones. I see who else is there in this playing field. Not in his body, but with his spiritual vessel, his soul. How much do I see? According to the level of my ability to see. That develops according to the magnitude of the intention to bestow that I acquire. This means that no one limits a person from perceiving the system, the other souls you see, you absorb, according to how much you're capable of. The more you develop, you perceive more. And from another angle, because we all came from one soul, the soul of Adam Harishon, the moment that you will correct yourself, you'll build for yourself your soul. The moment you build for yourself your soul, by this you elevate the whole system. So your relatives who passed away, you help them by that. Why is that? Because they're also part of the system. This means that you 100% control both what you see and also your ability to promote everyone. Even more than that, they are all waiting for you. There is a unique part in creation that only you can balance, only you can add. Even the greatest Kabbalists can't do it, but only you, because you are special. There's nobody like you. There wasn't any, and there wouldn't be. Before we continue with additional questions, and I'm very happy that you're asking today face to face, I'm inviting everyone to put up your hands and ask. Let's see another clip by Rav Leitman, our teacher who arranges our heart and head and our perception. Please.
What's
the relation between the soul and my body? You're asking me? In my opinion, there is no connection. Why? My body. That is completely on the animate level, that you can change practically all of its parts. Except that you can print it on a 3D printer, on the new 3D bioprinters. So why is the soul related to that? Maybe we can print the body with the soul and it'll all be one whole complete. So what is there in a person besides the flesh and blood and a certain system that's mechanical? We don't call the body man or Adam in Hebrew. We just call him that way, but it's not really so. Adam, man, is a certain entity that is similar to the Creator, that's similar to the force of love and bestowal, and that's why it's called an Adam, from the word dome, similar to. So it's the essence of the quality of bestowal and love that's similar to the Creator, and it's called Adam. Adam from the word similar to, and then to call something Adam or soul is one, the same. Or not. Or not. Why not? I'll tell you why. And here we are reaching two very special things. Similar to the Creator, it's suppose how I make myself similar to the Creator in all of my qualities, and in the measure to which I am like Him, then I'm called an Adam. I prepare a place, my qualities, in which part of the Creator is dressed, and it's called the soul. And also what I prepare for the reception of the soul on my part is called soul. But only what I prepare is called the guf, the body of the soul, and what enters the body of the soul is called its internality, or the soul itself, or light. So there are two parts here. Body and soul, this is something that I'm responsible for creating. The body of the soul, yes, that I need to create this body. And then when I create it, in the measure to which I am similar to the Creator, then that body, guf, is called an Adam, from the word dome, similar to the Creator, and in that enters the soul, which is the qualities of bestowal and love that I myself actually have shaped. not the physical body, of course.
יופי. אז היום ממש מלא שאלות שאתם כתבתם.
Great. So today we have plenty of questions that you wrote. We'll go over as many as we can.
תתעורר או לא, זה בוב מצרפת.
What determines, Bob from France is asking, what determines whether the point in the heart will awaken or not? There's a certain process that's unclear to us, but it's natural. Like a person's born as a fetus. He has different systems. Sometimes he uses them, some of them he doesn't. A small person who's just born, he has legs, but he doesn't walk. There's a certain process of development when a person's born. So the same with the soul. It's born and the parts come out one after the other. So simply according to the need of the system and each of us appears this question.
Silvia from Spain is asking, I understand that we are made of a corporeal body, a physical body, and a vital soul that sustains our life. And there is a spark of the Creator that awakens as the point in the heart, and it is what can develop as a soul. So far, you said it excellent. It's a summary of our lesson. One in whom the point in the heart is not awakened for the time being. Is he dead? Is he like a plant? There's no more. No, he's not dead. He develops like a human being. He has desires. Let's say he wants to make a lot of money, reach certain achievements. He does all kinds of things. He runs, he disappointed, he attains, he disappointed. The existence, this existence is imprinted as records in his database. So there is a database. You can divide it into two parts: impressions from the physical corporeal existence, at the end of which a question awakens about his whole existence. So everything that was here before, was it done for free? Was it useless? No, it wasn't useless. It's a preparation for this question mark to awaken. What is this whole thing called life? Without all the suffering from our existence, generation after generation, people after one after the other, it's all accumulated, as Baal Sulam explains in the Peace article, we would not be sitting here now. We didn't come out of nowhere here. We are the result of everything that we've been through so far, in all the incarnations, in all the generations, from the time that evolution started. The fact that we are here today with a point in the heart and we're researching this thing called life could not have happened without going through everything we've been through. So one does not die, he is live and he's developing, but on the corporeal level, he's getting ready for the spiritual development.
And the question from China, not exactly according to the topic, but a good question. Before the wisdom of Kabbalah, I was very judgmental and angry, and now I'm more forgiving, accept others. And I try to give others as much as I can, even those that don't study Kabbalah. Is this a correct approach? The entire world is interconnected. There's nothing redundant, but we always develop from the inside out. So there are those people that we study with, and so we communicate according to certain principles, so that we say, first of all, we need to work on it between people that are like you, that understand what you want to achieve, that understand that we all wish to try and reach the quality of bestowal, become like the Creator. People that aren't into it might get it wrong and give a different response because they don't understand these rules, not because they're bad or anything, but simply because they might not understand and thus respond incorrectly. So until we pass this knowledge on to the entire world, only then could we be able to turn to them. But in the meantime, we exercise it among people like us that study the wisdom.
Next question, Thomas from Hungary is asking, does the correction begin from our free will, our free choice, or is it bound to the intention of the light and it is independent of us? It's a very deep question, very profound. In order to answer it, we have to limit ourselves to what level are we going to follow. From the side of the system, from the side of the upper force, the entire process is managed in an absolute way. From that side, even the moment in which the point in the heart awakens in you is predefined in the system, and also how you will behave from that moment until the end of your correction, it's pre-known in the system.
אבל זה
But
לא בתפיסתנו.
this is not within our perception, it's not within our consciousness. This is from the side of the system. This is called everything is known in advance. But permission is given. What does it mean permission is given? That if Thomas, the point in the heart now awakens in him, now you do have free choice. In what? We talked about the previous, look at the previous meeting, repeat it. What did we say there? That you have elements that are not under your control, and there are elements that are within your control. The elements that are in your control, in your feeling, is how do you organize for yourself a suitable environment for spiritual development? Books, teachers, friends, the second meeting in Hungarian. This is considered that you take control over what will happen with you. If you go over the additional materials outside of the lesson, relate seriously to what we're studying here, check yourself. If you will want to be connected to people who also want this development, all of this will intensify the point in your heart. It will give it validity and strength. It's like putting it into a spiritual gym. And then it will grow. And then you will be strong, great, beautiful, and it will all be yours. In the system, didn't they know in advance that this is what's going to happen to you? They knew it, but you, in your feeling, have to choose your path.
Victor for Hungary is asking, is it necessary for the full correction, or does there need to be some kind of critical mass? How many people need to participate in the correction? Is it related to other people in any way? The answer is, there are different people. There are different functions in mankind. There are those that need to develop science. There's that can create inventions. And there are those that only use whatever is created, etc. It's the same way if we take a few people that are related to science, to culture, to this, to that, and you see how all the money and everything else of the world is divided. It's according to the same pyramid, more or less. There are those that invented, there are those that know how to communicate in the world, and many, many, many users. So, for those that go and develop their soul actively, that's only a small part. Maybe we can compare it to the mind of a person that's like 800 grams and an 800 kilos, and all the orders come from here. Possible, you can call that functionality, but will every person in the world become part of this and reach the Creator? Yes, they will. On a different level, like any other person can turn on the microwave oven. He knows that you need to put something inside, that won't be metal, otherwise it'll explode, close the micro, push the button, comes out something hot. Everyone knows how it's built, what's inside, what kind of mechanism, how many? Few. So this is exactly the thing. Every person, from small to great, will know the Creator. Every person will reach their wholeness and completeness. But on a lower level, most people in the world will probably never hear about the word Kabbalah, won't understand the processes, but still will need to change their nature in order to bestow.
Now we will take the last question, then we will ask Boris to summarize the lesson for us. The last question came from QP from the Philippines. He's asking, our body, we're told, will become what we eat, while our soul will become what we believe in. There is this slogan. So the friend is asking, is there truth to this slogan? So if we take the definitions of our lesson today, we define the soul in a very technical, scientific, realistic way. The intention to bestow, that you have to put over the substance that you're made of, the desire to receive delight and pleasure. The intention to bestow. If you will learn here how to build this intention in order to bestow, first of all, it will be bestowing to others. In your close circle of your study group, let's say, the group of the friends who speak Tagalog, that our friend Ariel is guiding, inside this small laboratory that you will build for yourselves, you will start to exercise the intention to bestow with the help of the study, with the help of the exercises, with the help of the guidance that you will receive from meeting to meeting. For sure, you will succeed in building a soul for yourself. Then you are born into the spiritual world. You enter degree number 1. On the way there, you don't have to believe anything. What do you have to do? To work in your heart, in your thoughts, in the direction of bestowal and love, in the framework, in your small framework of study. Later on, it will expand to the whole of creation, and what you will acquire will be yours. Good luck.
So today we talked about body and soul, which is something that's very close to all of us. Sometimes mystical, sometimes unclear, but very close. We started with Bala Sulam, giving several theories that are well known, spread in the world. There are those that believe, those that don't believe, those that combine. Then he says that everything goes from concealed to revealed. We said that we are the desire to receive, that one soul was created that divided into 600 souls and sparks of the souls, and as they cascaded into this world, they exist in the souls that nourish them, and each has to correct its own part. And if in us there's a certain desire to reach the Creator, the purpose of creation, then there is. If there isn't, there isn't. And then maybe it could be that we have or don't have a soul. But if this desire exists and one starts developing it, then this thing becomes eternal. And then it lives regardless of the body. A person lives regardless of his biological body because this is the uppermost desire. And if to conclude maybe with a story by Dr. Lightman that he told us from the words of Rabash, our teacher, that he said, what does a person feel who has a soul? And he compared to a shirt.
Go ahead and tell us.
You tell us.
No, I just want to hear you, really.
Okay, so Rabash, he compares it with a person that comes back in the evening. He comes back home in the evening, takes off his shirt, throws it in the washing machine. In the morning, he takes a new one from the cupboard. And the same way with the soul that was already eternal changes the bodies. We didn't talk about the incarnations of souls today, etc., but that we incarnate from state to state to state, and that man's purpose in the whole of creation is to reach such a desire that will be above, beyond life in our physical body.
125 degrees of spiritual development in which the intention to bestow keeps on growing, and we incarnate through them. This is the spiritual incarnation of the souls. We will do it together. It's fun, it's strong. They say in the book of Zohar that when a person discovers on the first spiritual degree, the spiritual light that fills him, it fills him with such joy, such pleasure, that if we will take all of the pleasures that this person felt in his life in all of his days, and we will put them on the scale here, and then we will add it to all the joys of all the people he knows. We'll put that too on the same scale, and then we will add all the people in all the generations ever. Put that also on the same scale. All of this is like a single speck compared to a full world of light and pleasure that fills a person on the first spiritual degree. This is what we can acquire here together. This is why we're here. We're grateful to you for being with us. We're grateful for the privilege we received, all of us as one, to study this divine wisdom that elevates us higher and higher to great lights, to upper worlds. We hug all of you. We wish you all the best in the world, health and a good feeling and joy, and we will be very happy to be with you next week. We're inviting all of you to your local meetings. This is very important. All the best to all of you.
All the best next week.